to welcome our new neighbours and perhaps hold conversations with any locals who weren't sure what to think about the new arrivals. Such was the goodwill of our community that we were inundated with offers of help. I've had a couple more today on this march, which is wonderful. Donated storage units were quickly filled. Our welcome book swelled to over 100 pages as sporting clubs, schools, church groups, etc., and individuals were photographed smiling and holding a welcome sign. People offered help in a myriad of ways. There were concerns. The new arrivals were to be housed in the grounds of an aged care facility, and some people didn't agree with that. They thought that the refugees were being housed with the aged residents. They weren't. They thought that old people were being disadvantaged or displaced. They weren't. They thought that old people shouldn't be exposed to younger people. They didn't understand how much older people benefit from this. They told us we should be looking after our own. Whatever that means, we're all human, aren't we? Most locals with concerns changed their minds once they knew the true story. But some people, namely outsiders, weren't interested in the truth. They deliberately tried to create an irrational fear in our community for their own political ends. Does that sound familiar? But some people, and so much of our energy was diverted from welcoming our new neighbours to making sure that our voices, the voices of compassion and decency, were louder and stronger than the voices of hatred and division. The lingering concern of one or two locals was hijacked by extremist groups staging an ugly protest outside Jenny Macklin's office in Heidelberg. We countered that with positive media images of a family picnic in Eltham with cupcakes and balloons and the spelling out of the word welcome with our bodies. Thank you. When they announced that they were staging the so-called Battle of Eltham today, right outside the aged care facility, whose very residents they were claiming to protect, we countered by asking people to sign an online pledge welcoming refugees to Eltham. Within a few days, we'd gathered over 8,000 signatures. The majority from Eltham and surrounds. And in the early hours of this morning, before the protesters arrived with their hate and ugliness, we mounted an art installation with each signature represented by a beautiful butterfly. We were inspired to adopt the butterfly as a symbol of welcome because the Eltham copper butterfly was an endangered species in the 1980s, but was saved by a group of residents coming together to fight for its survival. Ona Henderson, one of the instigators of that struggle, gifted us this beautiful representation of the Eltham copper butterfly seen here on my t-shirt. We are now fighting for the survival of compassion and humanity, both in Eltham and with you here today in Australia. The upside of what is happening in Eltham is that it has brought our community together. Countless people have thanked us for what we are doing, sometimes with tears in their eyes. They are shocked at what the extremist groups are doing and say, this is not who we are as a community. Just as you who are here today look at what our government is doing and say, this is not who we are as a nation. We are just and fair, not cruel and vindictive. We don't punish people who've committed no crime just to make a point. In Eltham, we say we have room in our hearts and in our town for the mere 120 refugees out of all the millions in the world that we are being asked to house. Just as, in Australia, we say we have room in our hearts and in our land for the innocent people being imprisoned without charge on Manus and Nauru. We say they are our responsibility. Bring them here. But it seems our voices aren't loud enough and strong enough yet. So keep exercising them. Talk to family members, neighbours, your hairdresser, the mechanic who services your car, the person you met in the supermarket, the friends you thought you knew but perhaps didn't. Talk to anyone who'll listen. Talk about how much Australia will gain by showing compassion to those who want nothing more than a safe place to live, where they can marry, have children, and make a contribution to humanity. Talk about the future heart surgeons, researchers, business people, teachers, lawyers, and all the other people who can contribute so much to our society, except that our government says they can never come here, ever. Talk about the richness of the culture that these people would share with us if we only let them. Talk, write letters, and ring politicians until we have a groundswell that cannot be ignored of people who look at what our politicians are doing and say, this is not who we are. Who we are is a country that in its ancient form had welcome to country as a central component of its culture. Who we are is a country that in its much more recent form has benefited enormously both culturally and economically from each new wave of refugees. Who we are is a country that believes in a fair go for everyone, including those on Manus and Nauru. This is who we are.